Welcome back, good people. I'm Josh.
And this is Tony.
And this is King's Chat. I'm glad y'all joining us again. We got another episode for you. We're going to talk about some serious matter today. We're going to talk about something serious. And we like to get your opinions about things and hear what you got to say. So feel free to follow us on YouTube. When you find our videos, go ahead and subscribe. That's how you can come back and keep listening to everything that we got to talk about. And so, Tony, go ahead and tell the people what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so for today's topic, me and Mr. Calhoun would like to discuss with all of you people out there, very enlightening conversation to be had with, I would say, the elders in your family. And the reason being is because you hear talk of how each generation that has came after the previous generation has kind of gotten worse, or things have gotten worse. I hear it all the time. Just thinking as far as me right now being 45, my mom who is about to be 67, and then my kids who I have are in their early 20s and below. Just knowing again how things have changed from the time my mom was a child to when I was a child to my children's current state. And so, I hear a lot of, well, back in my day, we didn't allow such and such and such and things of that nature. And so now I just kind of think like, well, if it was so quote unquote, good, I'm not gonna say good, but if it
was different or more positive.
Okay, more positive.
Back in your day.
Who dropped the ball? Why is it not gotten better, or has literally gotten worse? And with that comes into the question as far as a parent, at what age are you not responsible for your adults' children's decisions? Because coming up, as far as you instilling the morals and the values and everything that would make this person a upstanding individual. And like I said, if things have gotten worse, like, well, why hasn't those things? I mean, have those things been passed down? And who dropped the ball? Who dropped the ball?
That's a good question, Tony. That's real good, because it's like, if you're saying that things have gotten worse from your generation to the next, you hold some responsibility in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Like
How much responsibility though?
Yeah, you hold, and then when your child is successful, that sort of thing, it don't matter how old they are. You be like, oh yeah, that's my baby. They got this trait, that trait from me, and you claim all the successful things, right? And so it raises a question of like, who dropped the ball, who's responsible, or who played a part in the success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I'd have to say it's complicated.
Very.
Because like, I got kids now that are right at young adults, right? Mm-hmm. They're young adults, early 20s, that sort of thing. And so like, you tell them things, you be like, hey, this is the best way to do this, to navigate life. Make sure you do this at this certain point. Like, you tell them about credit. You tell them things about planning for their families, planning for their future careers. And you will share just different things that you've picked up and learned.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they take the advice and sometimes they don't. But it's like, I think as a parent, the most responsibility that you have is to tell your child, right? You at least got to tell them the things that they're supposed to do better. But it's a shared thing because it's ongoing.
It is. And this is the thing too, as a parent, a lot of the actions though that your kids either repeat or they do is what they saw you do. So it's like, you can say you told them this, that, and the third, but if they see something different, it's a strong possibility that they're going to act out as far as on what they saw instead of what was said.
Well, sometimes they feel a responsibility. So look, let me tell this quick story.
Okay, go ahead. So, story time with Josh.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you back with this one. So, I'm 15 years old.
Okay.
I've got an older brother who's 16. We were staying with my grandma.
Okay.
Grandma goes out of town. She leaves her new Buick 9.8. brand new. My brother just got a permit. He couldn't drive good, but we still in the
he
car.
Could drive just a little bit.
He couldn't, man. He could drive enough, but he couldn't turn. He would turn and then let the wheel go, and then catch it whenever
he can't
it's
drive.
straightened out, right? And so
drive.
he
Go
had a
ahead.
permit.
Proceed.
And you know, it's the high school football rival game, and we want to go to the game. We ain't got no ride. So he tells me, and this is where it comes in, like where you know better, and you've heard your parents say stuff like, "If y'all ever do that, I'm gonna kill y'all," that sort of thing. And so my brother, he's like, "We're going to this game." I'm like, "Well, how we gonna get there?" He holds up the car keys. He's like, "Oh, I kept the keys." And I'm like, "What?
Slickster.
We taking the car?" He's like, "This is what we supposed to do. We supposed to steal the car. This is what he says. We're supposed to steal the car." We both knew better and stuff. And you know, I tried to stick to what my grandma had instilled in me and that sort of thing, and the things that she said not to do. But as he's backing down the driveway and he's like, "Hey, are you in or you out? I'm going to this game with or without you." And he's backing down the driveway, and I'm talking to him through the passenger window. I'm like, "Hey, are you sure you want to steal the car? She gonna kill us when she get back if she find out that we stole
He
the
wasn't
car."
trying to hear none of that.
He was like, "Hey, bro, this is what we supposed to do. Either you in or you out, but this car is leaving." And so I jump in. And so like, were we told the right thing to do? Yes. In that moment, I kind of felt obligated to do the wrong thing because he said every teenager steals the car. And so we joined that group of teenagers who stole the car. And we went to the game that day. We ended up getting caught later on that night because my cousin stopped by. He was like, "Hey, yeah, your grandma told me to come and collect these keys." And
Wow.
man, we were dead in the water because the neighbor saw us pulling out. He called our grandma who was out of town. Was like, "Hey,
Okay. That right there. Who called?
the
the
neighbor."
grandma? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Look,
I can definitely
God rest
say-
his soul, Mr. Boyd.
I can definitely say a difference. And when I was growing up to with my kids today is the fact of true community.
Facts.
What I want to say, I'm not going to even say policing, but everybody
It takes
watched
a
out for
village.
everybody. Correct.
Yeah.
So if your neighbor saw you doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, they had every right to say something to you 1st and foremost. And as a child, you understood you bet not say anything back to them smart or disrespectful because
Exactly.
you was already caught in the wrong, and you was just hoping that, hey, please just say what you got to say with me.
And don't tell my mom.
Don't call my mom.
Don't call my grandma.
Don't call anybody.
Yeah.
I will listen to what you're saying right now, and I will stop doing whatever it is I was doing, and I will go home. I promise.
Yep.
Today, that's not the case.
You don't have that today.
Not at all.
Like it used to be like back, I guess probably 60s, 70s. Like somebody did something wrong, you could whoop their kid, send them home. Somewhere in that 80, late 70s, 80 range.
I definitely say the 80s because, and what you're saying,
You couldn't whoop
like,
nobody's kid.
Right. My grandmother and them didn't play nobody else putting their hands on me. But again,
Yeah.
we understood that if
Somebody
I was
said
somewhere
something.
out doing something and got caught, I was gonna get it on site. So
Yeah.
it was just like, oh,
Well, today
okay.
you can't even say anything to nobody's kids.
You can't.
Like you can't even correct them. They're like, "Oh, that's my child. You don't say nothing to my child."
Not even the fact that you can't correct them. The kids are 9 times out of 10 gonna say something back to you.
For real.
Like I said, disrespectful, and may even curse.
No,
Because I mean they already curse right now.
where did it get lost?
And that's what I'm saying. At what point? Who dropped the ball?
Right. Where did it get lost?
And I don't like to put the blame on anybody, but when I really kind of look at the situation for what it is, I would say
I already know what you about to say.
the generation that came up in the 80s, those young adults.
I already know what you about to say.
So I would say the cutoff, and I ain't gonna say the cutoff, but the last of that generation that I'm kind of pointing the finger at, they probably graduated around 88, 89.
Man.
before the 90s. They had already graduated high school. Put it that way.
Man, you pointing fingers like that?
I'm definitely pointing fingers like that.
Wow.
Because when I think about the kids, as far as a lot of them that I have encountered since I've been an adult, that's when I really started seeing. So when I've been adult, say 2001, I was 22, and I was working at a youth correctional facility in Muncie, Indiana, called the YOC.
That's news to me.
So I'm dealing with kids that have gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and just in the behaviors and some of the language that was being used when adults was present, it was profound to me at that point in time, because I'm like, man,
you talking like this in front of an adult.
In front of an adult. Yeah, I know you already in trouble, but you still talking like this in front of an adult? It was just like, yeah, I knew some of the baddest, young men coming up as far as committing crimes and things of that nature.
Is this back where you from?
Yeah, back where I'm from. So, but in saying that, I knew that once they got into the presence of another adult, especially a parent or so-and-so, all that just went to the side. I've seen it happen plenty of times. I've seen a boy get arrested.
Man,
and his mama come on the scene.
Certain places you almost expect it though, right? But, so like certain places, like you up from near Chicago.
Right.
That sort of thing. So certain, I guess, more hardened places you expect for the people to be a little hard. But like, it sounded like y'all were raised the same way as people in the Midwest.
Bro, like I said, it's the age gap in regards to when my youngest uncle, when his classmates and his peers started having kids. Because when I think about it again, these kids are now probably in their early 30s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, do you think it has anything to do with like the drug epidemic that was going on, like you're talking about the 80s, 90s, you're talking about crack?
And that's what I'm saying. That generation though is, to I want to say a certain extent, responsible. And it's tough to say that because no other generation was faced with the epidemic that they were faced with.
Yeah.
Crack cocaine, of course, has done more damage to the black community
than any other drug.
That I can think of. Because when you think about it, you go back to the 50s and 60s or whatever, as far as like heroin.
That's what I was just about to say.
And cocaine and things of that nature.
They still raised some pretty responsible people.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it wasn't until 70s, I want to say.
Yeah.
Where you can really start seeing, okay, the effect of drugs are really hurting us as a people. And so with that being said, if it's hurting us as a people, we know that the adults that are responsible for children at this point in time, if they are in any way, shape, form, or fashion associated with these drugs, the likelihood that they are going to be able to, I'm not going to say raise or take care of responsibly children, but it decreases.
Yeah, but you know something else too with our generation, like we were like the latchkey kids, like where we were told to go home, lock the door, don't open the door for anybody till I get off work by our parents, and we knew to do just that. We go home and we cook something for ourselves to eat, and we sit with the door locked until our parents came home. And so like I think with some of the newer generations, like they didn't have to do that. They didn't have that responsibility either, and so they were more rude. That sort of thing, because like you didn't have to potentially navigate any adult issues, like because by then a lot of the parents that came up in that irresponsible era, like they weren't working.
They weren't around. Yeah.
They weren't around. They weren't working jobs where they would have to tell you to stay in the house and that sort of thing. Like most of them were, if they were present, that sort of thing, they were doing some type of different type of job, kind of like what we're seeing now. Like we don't see that traditional job anymore. You got people door dashing. You got people that are Ubering or doing some type of thing to deliver groceries,
to earn income,
right. But they have flexible time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, people was in factories, and that sort of thing. They was working on some type of assembly line.
Okay, but and I don't want to cut you off, but with saying that, so you telling me to a certain extent, they weren't present because they were working for the most
Yeah.
part. So, in knowing that,
But they instilled in you some things of what to do.
I was just about to say, I knew that even if there wasn't an adult present, and I had idle time to myself, I knew what I could or what I shouldn't be doing. So it was like, yeah, that was, I ain't gonna say an issue, but it is, because we understand that the more the parent is away from the home and not present and actually supervising and watching their child, the more potential for something to go wrong. It's not
Every
rocket
time.
science. So if the parents aren't home because they're always working, because they need to make sure the bills are getting paid, what have they put in place, or what have they set in place with their children so that there isn't chaos or total anarchy jumping off soon as they leave the house?
Yeah. Well, here's another thing too to change too. So like, early 1900s is pretty common that you had kids early, right? Like soon as you were a teenager, you were married off, having kids early.
Yeah.
But then somewhere probably 60s, 70s, it wasn't a normal thing to be having kids early as 14 and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
It was shunned upon. If you had a child at 15, 16, it was shunned. And I think that for a period of time, the people didn't have kids young like that. But then something happened and they went back in the 80s, the 90s, they start having kids earlier and stuff. And so you have young parents who really aren't adults themselves that need some guidance, that are now parents. And so they're not instilling the same values and that sort of thing, or they're trying to be cool with their kids, trying to be their friends and that sort of stuff. I think that plays a factor too in how much parenting goes into a child, how long you have to be a parent, right?
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because as you were saying about kids still being kids as having kids, the support system is not the same either. Knowing that grandmas back in the day, again, my grandmother was one of these quote unquote grandmas. She wasn't trying to go to the club and kick it when I was, little. When I think about my grandmother, probably was in her early 40s when I was born, maybe 40, 41. But,
But you had retirement age that was different too. So your grandma was about to retire in another 10 or so
20,
years.
another 20 years at 60.
Like at one point you could retire like 55.
But again, but my point that I'm making is, as far as she, was pretty much settled in making sure that the house was always being taken care of and not absent, as far as going on trips with her girls or still hitting the club and going out. And it's like, okay, I understand you are an adult, because I'm basically at the age where my grandmother was. It's like, I'm an adult. You can't tell me I can't still do what I want to do. But at the same time, understanding that me not doing those types of things is for the betterment of my family, as far as making sure that somebody is, I'm not gonna say available, but there and in their right mind and able to take care of whatever situation that may, come about at any given time. So
Yeah, we're living in a time now where it's so much emphasis given to, living your life and that sort of thing, you being happy. And then, like I said, they've changed retirement ages and that sort of thing too. And so people are like, okay, I got X amount of time to feel young, to live it up. And they keep raising the retirement age now. And so it's like, I better have fun now instead of waiting until I retire. Or when you could see retirement in sight and retirement was going to be 55, that sort of thing. A lot of people were cool, I'll have fun when I retire.
right
Now retirement age is like 76, something crazy. And it's like at 76, how much fun can I have?
So right now you're saying basically people know it's a race in regards to, I got to get this,
I got to have fun now.
out of me, because it may not
May not
ever
happen.
come.
May not ever come.
I
And so
understand.
I think all of those are factors, right? So like, I'm in my 40s and stuff, and I've got a grandson and stuff, and I'm like, hey, don't call me to babysit for another 10 years. I'm like, I got some fun that I can have and stuff. And like, I jokingly say that because I'll babysit them, but I'm like, I still feel young. And I know that if I wait till retirement at 76, I was like, yeah, how much fun can you have at 76? And so I think that that's changing a lot of people.
Yeah.
But like, a lot of people are so serious about it. They're really like, don't call me to babysit because I'm not doing it at all.
And that's what I was going to say as far as what's the percentage of people who don't want to do it or can't do it because they're truly preoccupied doing stuff that they probably shouldn't be doing, though.
A lot. But who shouldn't go to the beach? Who should go out with their friends?
I mean, I'm not saying no one should, but I think it's more of when you see it almost
priorities.
being a priority. Yeah, I'm not saying a priority, but and it's to a certain extent competition where they still believe that they still have it or can do it just as good as the person that's younger than them in the society.
Well, a lot of times you got parents that party together with their kids,
and that's crazy because
like,
as
they
you
go
said,
out with their kids.
as you said earlier, as far as being friendly, it's like at what point or where do you draw the line and how quote unquote friendly you are with your children?
Yeah, I can't go out with my kids.
So it's like it's almost something like, okay, so certain things are, I ain't gonna say rule, but almost should be understood. You shouldn't be going out with your kids. You shouldn't be having children at the same time your kids are having kids.
That's my whole family.
So, hey, and it's mine too. And so again, so it's like at what point, as we talked about, not making mistakes or doing the same things that our parents did, I'm not gonna do that.
Man, it was crazy because my daughter and I guess I was very young at 19, and our oldest daughter was being born, and I had a 3-year-old sister. Crazy. And it's like I was told, don't have a bunch of babies around here, that sort of thing, right?
Did your mom have any more kids after you had Saja?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
So, but
all
like
right.
they had a 3-year-old.
But that's more on you as far as you shouldn't have been doing what you was doing.
I was married.
Okay, let me take that back. You're right. I apologize.
I was married with a baby.
I apologize.
And she was playing.
But you guys were almost an exception because just like you said, back in the early 1900s, that's what people was doing. Did.
And so like, we moved out senior year of high school, had our own apartment. And so we went right into adulthood. Like we weren't the typical teens. Like 18, 19-year-olds now looking back, I'm like, they don't know nothing. Like we didn't know nothing. We were just getting by and stuff. We thought we knew what we had, what we knew and that sort of thing. And like there were certain things that, my dad told me. He was like, hey son, you don't want a bunch of babies everywhere or a bunch of women. And so like I got 4 kids by the same woman and stuff. And so like I knew that. I abided by that. And then, he would say things like, oh, it's a whole lot of girls think the Calhoun boys make pretty babies. I was like, you be out here, you better wrap it up. So he would say that sort of thing that I listened to. And but there was a whole lot of stuff that I didn't. And stuff like he told me a lot of the right stuff. My mom told me a lot of the right stuff. My grandma also told me a lot of the right stuff.
And so with saying that, like again, going back to the original question, at what age would you say your parents were no longer responsible for those decisions that you were making that you probably shouldn't have been doing?
When they had to borrow money from me. Not like
that's another topic. You hear that, Mayor? That's another topic.
When you get to the place to where you're actually giving advice to your parents, then it shifts a little bit. And like that is a point to it's a good thing to happen to where you've matured enough to where you can help your parents and that sort of thing, but it shouldn't happen at a young age. And so I was in my early 20s and that sort of thing and, helping my folks, And so at that point, it's like, okay, how much more guidance can you really give, right? And like they can give some perspective and that sort of thing. And they gave perspective to me at different points. I matured early and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I say that's a totally different perspective than I didn't even think about it like that. Because I mean, I'm in a situation as far as with my mom or whatever. I know that if I need anything, she's the person. You know, I mean, not outside of my marriage, but again, like my mom's always been.
She's the go-to.
Responsible and been able, you know, I've been able to lean on her for, you know, whatever. So it's never been a point where I was truly giving advice. And with that being said, I'm glad you kind of brought that out, because I still feel like, you know, today she don't listen to me. And she don't listen to me because she's always, I ain't gonna say had one up on me, but she's always been responsible. There's never been a point where I needed her. I mean, where she needed me. So it was like, she don't. She listens to me, but it just seems like, you know, sometimes like, she looks at me like, hey, I've forgotten more than you've ever learned. So why am I listening to you, or why would I listen to you in this situation when I, you know?
But it's also something to be said too about like growing up with your parents. Like when your parents were young parents and that sort of thing, like you almost grow up with them. And so the things that they don't know, like they just don't know. If you don't go seek it out to learn it, you just don't know it. And so it's like learning from them growing up and being the oldest child, that sort of thing. So like we all grew up together. And so now my parents are 20 years older than me. And so they don't have formal educations. Like my mom didn't finish high school. My stepdad, he dropped out in 7th grade in Mississippi. And so I was primarily raised by them. Then my biological father, like the dude was a genius, but he got into some trouble with drugs and that sort of thing. Lost a scholarship that was going to take him to college. He never recovered from it. So he just knew what he knew from that point forward. And so, you know, I was dealing with people who had maybe a high school education or less. And so, I went on to college, was one of the first to go to college. So there was a lot of stuff that I learned that exceeded some of the things that they knew.
Learned. Yeah. And like I said, I can't say that because my mother went to college. My father, you know, he graduated with his master's. And just in saying this, for me, I can honestly say that my mom was no longer responsible for the decisions I made once I left for college. After that point, it was like, I feel honestly like she had instilled enough in me. It was like, hey, this is what you should do. If you choose to do something else, this will be a possible consequence. And if that's what you want, then that's what you go and get.
Yeah.
So I can honestly say,
you got a son in college now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to an extent, you're responsible for him, but like the choices that he makes, like those would be his choices that he'd have to live with.
And I mean, I honestly felt the same way too, as far as I believe that, you know, once my children have reached 18, it's like the decisions that you make after that, that's on you. Seriously.
And you just got to tell them before they get there.
I felt, and I know that's why I said that's why I felt the same way with my mom when I look back at the situation. I'm like, she did a damn good enough job up until this point. And if you can't run with what she's established, that's on you. And that's a decision that's truly based off of you not wanting it, because you can't say there was not support or there was not the information put before you or an opportunity put before you to do the best that you can with your life.
Right.
So
look, if y'all out there listening, y'all found our page, stumbled on our page, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to hear how long are you responsible for your child and stuff. And I know they age and mature at different ages, that sort of thing. But how long are you responsible? I want to hear what's the longest that you've known somebody to have to be responsible for a child, because I know there's some 40-year-olds in some basements somewhere.
50, 60. I mean,
so,
bro,
you know, with things that have changed.
No age cap.
I want to hear from all of you guys commenting on this. You know, share and that sort of thing. And, you know, when we have our next episode, you know, we'll mention some of the interesting things that you guys talked about. Share it with us. Tony, you got anything else for the people?
That's it, man.
Man, thank y'all for tuning in and joining us. Again, this has been King's Chat. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button.